Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Say these all together. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai. So, welcome everyone this morning to Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're starting a new canto today, canto 8. And we're starting with chapter 1. We'll do 1 to 16. This chapter is called The Manus, Administrators of the Universe. So we'll read the translations. Start.
King Parikshit said, "O my Lord, my spiritual master, now I have fully heard from your grace about the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu, and there are also other Manus, and I want to hear about the dynasties. Please kindly describe them to me."
Text 2. O learned Brahmana, Shukadev Goswami, the great learned persons who are completely intelligent describe the activities and appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead during the various Manvantaras. We are very eager to hear about these narrations. Kindly describe them.
O learned Brahmana, kindly describe to us whatever activities the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who created this cosmic manifestation, has performed in the past Manvantaras, is performing at present, and will perform in the future Manvantaras.
Shukadev Goswami said, "In the present Kalpa there have already been 6 Manus. I have described to you Swayambhuva Manu and the appearance of many demigods in this Kalpa of Brahma. Swayambhuva is the first Manu."
Swayambhuva Manu had 2 daughters named Akuti and Devahuti. From their wombs, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as 2 sons named Yagyamurti and Kapila, respectively. These sons were entrusted with preaching about religion and knowledge.
O best of Gurus, I have already described in the 3rd canto the activities of Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Now I shall describe the activities of Yagnapati, the son of Akuti.
Swayambhuva Manu, the husband of Satarupa, was by nature not at all attached to enjoyment of the senses. Thus, he gave up his kingdom of sense enjoyment and entered the forest with his wife to practice austerities.
O sign of Bharata, after Swayambhuva Manu had thus entered the forest with his wife, he stood on one leg on the banks of the river Sunanda, and in this way, with only one leg touching the earth, he performed great austerities for 100 years. While performing these austerities, he spoke as follows.
Lord Manu said, "The Supreme Living Being has created this material world of animation. It is not that he was created by this material world. When everything is silent, the Supreme Being stays awake as a witness, The living entity does not know him, but he knows everything.
Within this universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his super soul feature is present everywhere, wherever there are animate or inanimate beings. Therefore, one should accept only that which is allotted to him. One should not desire to infringe upon the property of others.
Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly watches the activities of the world, no one sees him. However, one should not think that because no one sees him, he does not see, for his power to see is never diminished. Therefore, everyone should worship the Supersoul, who always stays with the individual soul as a friend.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning, no end, and no middle. Nor does he belong to a particular person or nation. He has no inside or outside. The dualities found within this material world, such as beginning and end, mine and theirs, are all absent from the personality of the Lord, Supreme Lord. The universe which emanates from him is another feature of the Lord. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate truth, and he is complete in greatness.
Text 13. The entire cosmic manifestation is the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, who has millions of names and unlimited potencies. He is self-effulgent, unborn, and changeless. He is the beginning of everything, but he has no beginning. Because he has created this cosmic manifestation by his external energy, the universe appears to be created, maintained, and annihilated by him. Nonetheless, he remains inactive in his spiritual energy and is untouched by the activities of material energy.
Therefore, to enable people to reach the stage of activities that are not tinged by fruitive results, great saints first engage people in fruitive activities. For unless one begins by performing activities as recommended in the Shastras, one cannot reach the stage of liberation, or activities that produce no reactions.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in opulence by his own gain, yet he acts as the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this material world. In spite of acting in that way, he is never entangled. Hence, devotees who follow in his footsteps are also never entangled.
Last one.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna works just like an ordinary human being, yet he does not desire to enjoy the fruits of work. He is full in knowledge, free from material desires and diversions, and completely independent. As the Supreme Teacher of human society, he teaches his own way of activities, and thus he inaugurates the real path of religion. I request everyone to follow him.
Jai, thank you. So here we're seeing a little bit about the thought processes of Swayambhuva Manu. So this is, well, in the introduction, Shukadeva Goswami is asking about the other Manus because he's already actually heard so much about Swayambhuva Manu and his descendants. And now Shukadeva wants to hear about the other Manus because in narrating all the descendants and activities of Swayambhuva Manu and his descendants' activities, there have been so many great personalities, right? Like Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj. There have been incarnations of the Lord like Kapila Dev and Yagyamurti. And so he's heard about all of these wonderful activities and he's thinking, he's relishing this all this Krishna Katha and topics about Krishna and the devotees of Krishna, and he's learning so much too, and he's getting inspired. So he's like, oh, tell me about the other Manus and their descendants, because he's thinking, oh, there's going to be a lot more personalities, more incarnations, more wonderful pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. So he's wanting to hear more and more. And Shukadeva Goswami assures him that, yes, I'm going to tell you about the other Manus, and he will. But before he gets to that, he wants to talk about how Swayambhuva Manu wrapped up his life, basically. And so Manu was the king of the world, and he gave it all up, and he went to the forest. It says that in text 7. Vishrija Rajyam Tapase. So he gave up his Rajyam, he gave up his kingdom, his position as king, and he went to the forest for Tapase, means for tapa, for tapasya, for austerities. So what austerity was he doing? He was standing on one leg on the bank of the river Sunanda, and for 100 years. And he went there together with his wife. So this is the Vanaprastha. He took Vanaprastha. He gave up his family, his occupation, all his opulences, his home. He gave up his Grihastha ashram, and he went to the forest along with his wife, and his wife went to support him. So while he's standing on one leg, his wife is bringing him water, bringing him something to eat so he can stay alive like that. She's still taking care of him, but he's totally detached. He's just in another frame of mind here. And so we get to see what his frame of mind is because he's speaking. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it's not like he's giving a lecture to his wife or to any of the sages there in the forest that might be gathered around or anything, but he's just kind of like muttering to himself. He's reflecting on all that he's learned from gurus, sadhus, and shastra over the course of his life. And, we can see here that he's literally like practically quoting some verses from scripture. For example, text 10 is basically mantra 1 of Sri Ishopanishad. He says, Atma vasyamidam vishvam yat kinchid jagatam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magrida kasyasviddanam. So it's the same exact verse. First line is a little different, but meaning is the same. So he's just reciting some verses. It's like now we might learn some Bhagavad Gita shlokas or Bhagavatam verses, and then later, when you're sitting in a quiet place, let's say you go to Vrindavan and you're just sitting there at the foot of Govardhan Hill and you're trying to, be spiritual. So you might be chanting Hare Krishna mantra, singing some devotional songs that you've learned, maybe reciting some shlokas that you remembered and reflecting on them. And that's basically what he's doing. He's gone to a holy place, he's doing some austerities, he's basically alone, doesn't have anything else to do, and he's just absorbing himself and reflecting on some prayers and verses and teachings that he's gathered over the years. So it's very sweet, very peaceful, very beautiful. And in these verses, he's glorifying the Lord in so many ways. And so we're going to focus on text 16. We'll read the Sanskrit for this verse and the purport, and then we'll focus on the ways that he's glorifying the Lord in this verse. Text 16. Samhita looks like a long one. Tam ihamanam nirahankritam buddham nirashi sampurnam doesn't work. Okay. Tam ihamanam nirahankritam buddham. Better. Nirashi sampurnamananya choditam Ninshikshayantam nijavartma samstitam Prabhum prapadye kila dharma bhavanam Tam ihamanam nirahankritam buddham Nirashi sampurnamananya choditam Nrin shikshayantam nijavartma samstitam. Prabhum prapadye kila dharma bhavanam. Yeah. Virashi sampurnamananya choditam. Nrin shikshayantam nijavatma samstitam. Prabhum prabhadye kila dharma bhavanam. Ami hamanam nirahankritam buddham. Nirashi sampurnamananya choditam. Nrin shikshayantam nijavatma samstitam. Prabhum prabhadye nila bhavanam. Okay, thank you. Let's do the word for word. We'll do this all together. Tam, unto the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hamanam, who is acting for our benefit, Nirahankritam, who is without entanglement or desire for gain, Buddham, who is completely in knowledge, Nirashisham, without desires to enjoy the fruits of his activities, Purnam, who is full and therefore has no need to fulfill desires, Ananya, by others, Choditam, induced or inspired, Nrin, all of human society, Shikshayantam, to teach the real path of life, Nijavartma, his own personal way of life, Samstitam, to establish without deviation, Prabhum, unto the Supreme Lord, Prapadye, I request everyone to surrender, Akila Dharma Bhavanam, who is the master of all religious principles or the occupational duties for a human being. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, works just like an ordinary human being, yet he does not desire to enjoy the fruits of work. He is full in knowledge, free from material desires and diversions, and completely independent. As the supreme teacher of human society, he teaches his own way of activities, and thus he inaugurates the real path of religion. I request everyone to follow him. So, it's interesting because he's not really talking to anybody, but he is in his mind, he's kind of like muttering these thoughts, but in his mind he's thinking, yeah, everyone has to follow the example set by the Supreme Lord who has all these qualities and things. Purport. This is the sum and substance of our Krishna consciousness movement. There we go. Very solid statement by Srila Prabhupada. So what we see here in this verse, this is the sum and substance. In other words, the totality of our Krishna consciousness movement. We are simply requesting human society to follow in the footsteps of the teacher of Bhagavad Gita. Who's the teacher of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna. Yeah. Follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita as it is, and your life will be successful. That is the summary of the Krishna consciousness movement. The organizer of this Krishna consciousness movement is teaching everyone how to follow Lord Ramachandra, how to follow Lord Krishna, and how to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this material world, we need a leader for a monarchy or good government. Lord Sri Ramachandra, by his practical example, showed how to live for the benefit of all human society. He fought with demons like Ravana. He carried out the order of his father, and he remained the faithful husband of Mother Sita. Thus, there is no comparison to Lord Ramachandra's acting as an ideal king. Indeed, people still hanker for Rama Rajya, a government conducted like that of Lord Ramachandra. Similarly, although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he taught his disciple and devotee Arjuna how to lead a life ending in going back home, back to Godhead. Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. All teachings, political, economic, social, religious, cultural, and philosophical, are to be found in the Bhagavad Gita. One has to follow them strictly. The Supreme Personality of Godhead also comes as Lord Chaitanya, just to play the part of a pure devotee. Thus the Lord teaches us in different ways just to make our lives successful, and Swayambhuva Manu requests us to follow him. Swayambhuva Manu is the leader of mankind, and he has given us a book called Manu Samhita to guide human society. Herein he directs us to follow the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations. These incarnations are described in Vedic literature, and Jayadev Goswami has described 10 important incarnations in summary. Keshavadrita Mina Sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Buddha Sharira Jai Jagadisha Hare, etc. Swayambhuva Manu instructs us to follow the instructions of God's incarnations, especially Krishna's instructions of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Appreciating Bhakti Marg as instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thus depicted the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartameka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Bhudiryastamaham Prapadye. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. That's from Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natakam 674. In this age of Kali, people cannot follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore the Lord himself takes the part of Sri Krishna Chaitanya to teach personally how to become Krishna conscious. He asks everyone to follow him and become a guru to deliver the fallen souls of Kali Yuga. Yade deka tareka Krishna upadesh amara gaya guru hai tara edesh. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 7:128. The coherent purpose of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to teach human society how to be happy by following the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh, it's a very, very important verse. Prabhupada says the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement. And so what Swayambhuva Manu is saying here is that when Krishna comes in the form of a human being, right, ihamanam means that he comes like a manava janma. He takes birth apparently as an ordinary human being. He sets the example for all of us to follow. And there are different ways that he does this. So first of all, Swayambhuva Manu is listing different qualities that the Lord has that we're meant to follow. And it's clear that we're meant to follow them because a lot of these qualities that Swayambhuva Manu is using to glorify the Lord, Krishna uses those same words or he instructs us that we should have those same qualities. He says things like, a learned person has these qualities. A person who's dear to me has these qualities. A self-realized soul has these qualities. Or a person who, his consciousness is the stita dhimuni, who is a thoughtful person, who is situated in transcendental consciousness, has these qualities. So Swayambhuva Manu is saying that we need to follow the path of the Lord, and we also need to follow him in exemplifying these wonderful transcendental qualities. So the first one here, maybe we can just scroll up to the Sanskrit again so we can just look at these. The first one is Nir Ahankritam. So Nir Ahankritam is, aham means I, and kritam means to do or done. In this sense, it means done. So it means, so Nir Ahankritam means that nothing is done for oneself. In other words, that the Lord never acts selfishly. And Prabhupada says that that he translates it that who is without entanglement or desire for gain. And yeah, so the idea is that here that we act not selfishly for trying to fulfill our own desires for material gain, but we act for the benefit of others. And Krishna also wants us to act without ahankara, right? He says that the person who acts out of false ego, thinking I'm this body, thinking that I'm the enjoyer and that everything that I do should be for my own benefit, my own material gain, such a person is a what? Ahankara vimudhatma. He's a big mudha. He's a person who's basically like a fool or an ass. That is the literal translation of that word. So we shouldn't be foolish. Selfishness means foolishness, but we should act for the benefit of others. And Krishna sets that example that everything that Krishna does when he comes is for the benefit of others. And then another word that he uses here is buddham. So buddham means completely in knowledge. And of course, Krishna also, he directs us to acquire knowledge. We should be learned. We should have knowledge. He says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnina sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshana. He's instructing, just try to learn the truth. Just try to be a learned person. Approach someone who has learning, who has jnana, who is tattvadarshina, and become, learn from that person, inquire from them, render service, receive knowledge from self-realized souls, so that we can also become buddham, or completely in knowledge. It's very important. And then he says, nirashisam. So this word is also, it's used in the Bhagavad Gita 3:30. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita 3:30, he says, nirashir nirmamo bhutva. So the same exact word is here. In Gita, Prabhupada translates it as without desire for profit. And here, nirashisim, without desire to enjoy the fruits of his activities. So the same thing. So we shouldn't have, so the Lord doesn't desire to attain any profit from his activities. He doesn't try to enjoy the fruits of his activities. And he instructs us in Bhagavad Gita that we should not either, right? He says in this verse, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So we should perform our duties, live our lives in a way that is nirashir, without any desire for material profit. And then he says purnam. So purnam means complete. And of course there's the verse from Ishopanishad, Om Purnam Adam Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachite Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vishishite. That the Lord is Purnam, he's perfect and complete, and also that everything that emanates from the Lord is also perfect and complete. And so because we've emanated from the Lord, we are also Purnam, we're also complete in ourselves. And we should, if we actually realize ourselves, to the extent that we realize ourselves, we are going to feel that completeness, right? And Prabhupada's commentary on that verse from Ishopanishad, he says that all feelings of incompleteness that we may have are due to incomplete understanding of the complete whole. So if we're feeling emptiness, or lacking, or that we need something, dissatisfaction, any kind of dissatisfaction in our lives, it's because we don't have complete understanding of Krishna and Krishna's plan and Krishna's will for us, etc. So when we're actually self-realized, we're also going to feel purnam. We're going to be fully satisfied. And Krishna also talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita, 270. He says, a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So a person who's in knowledge, a self-realized soul, is deep, like the ocean. And the ocean, because of its depth, is always steady. It doesn't overflow its boundaries. It doesn't, it's always like basically a steady water level, even though rivers are flowing into it. So even though some desires might come into the mind, so there may be kama, right? It says, tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve. So he says that desires may come into the mind, but a person, the self-realized soul, doesn't become a kama-kami. He says, sashantim apnoti na kama-kami. So desires are there, kama is there, but the devotee is not a kama-kami. In other words, devotee doesn't desire to fulfill those desires. So he experiences desires, makes a mental note of those desires, but doesn't desire to fulfill the desires. Just lets them come and go. Just lets the desires come into the mind and go out, or they just come in and they become dovetailed in the practice of Krishna consciousness. Right? In the same way, these rivers flow in, and they don't agitate the ocean by entering. They just merge with the ocean and become part of that ocean's water. Right? They take on the qualities of the ocean. They enter as fresh water, but then they become salt water, and they just become part of the ocean. So in the same way, some desires might come into the mind, but they get spiritualized by dint of one's pure Krishna consciousness, and then they just get dovetailed into the service of the Lord. They become impetuses to serve the Lord, take shelter of the Lord, be more Krishna conscious. So that's the idea here of Purnam. And then we can be complete, because we never feel any lacking, because we're totally fulfilled and satisfied. And then he says, this is a very interesting one, he says, Ananya Choditam. So Choditam means inspiration. Early Gayatri Mantra ends with the word prachodayat, let me be inspired. So Choditam means inspired. And he says Ananya Choditam. So Anya means others, and A means not. So it literally means that without being inspired by others. So what does this mean, that we're not inspired? Does it mean that Krishna is not inspired and that we also should not be inspired by anyone else? No, but it means that we should be self-inspired, right? And the way that Prabhupada translates this is, where is it here? Completely independent, that the Lord is independent. In other words, he can do all the things that he needs to do without being induced or inspired by some outside source, by anyone else. He doesn't need anyone to inspire him. He's going to do his things anyway, independently. He takes initiative. So as devotees too, we know what we need to do, and we just need to do it, right? We just need to be determined, take initiative, start something, just do something wonderful. Prabhupada would say, do something wonderful for Krishna. And of course, in the beginning, we may need some inducement or some inspiration, and that's basically Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, right? We don't have a taste, we don't have attraction for serving, for chanting, we don't particularly feel inspired to do anything wonderful for Krishna, because we're still caught up in our own, bodily concept of life and all of our little things that we think we need for that. So we need to be pushed a little bit to do something, to serve the Lord. But then we shouldn't stay at that level. We need to advance and come and by serving, develop that natural attraction, so that we don't need somebody to wake us up in the morning and remind us to chant our rounds and get on our case because we're late for our service, or or just think of Krishna, or just remember Krishna. But it should be spontaneous, should be self-inspired, that we wake up in the morning and we're just, even if we're totally alone without anyone, without any accountability, we're just going to chant our rounds, we're going to do our service, we're going to read Prabhupada's books, we're going to think about Krishna, meditate on the Lord, and aspire to serve him in different ways. So that's the meaning here of Ananya Choditam. Self-inspired, independent in our inspiration. And then, so these are some of the qualities, that we that Krishna has, and that we are meant to develop. And this idea of independent also is spoken about. Krishna speaks about in the Bhagavad Gita, text 4:20. where he says it in a slightly different way. Yeah, he uses the word, he also says about satisfaction, nitya tripto, always satisfied. And then he says, nir ashraya. So Prabhupada translates nir ashraya as independent in the same way as he translates ananya choditam as independent. Nir ashraya means something very similar to ananya choditam, that ashraya means shelter, and nir means without shelter. In other words, that and he's talking about one who has understood to be in full knowledge is nir ashraya. He doesn't take shelter. He doesn't have to take shelter of any outside source for inspiration or, for whatever. He just can do it himself. He's independent. This also generally, the way that Prabhupada translates things like nirguna or nirakara, that could be translated that the Lord has no form, the Lord has no qualities. Prabhupada translates him that he has no material qualities. He has spiritual qualities. So this nirashraya can mean that a devotee doesn't take shelter of any material thing, like the durashayas. He talks about this idea of durashaya, or false shelter. Like materialistic people take shelter of their money, right? They take shelter of their, material intelligence, their education, or, worse, they'll take shelter of drugs or alcohol when they're suffering or something. So take shelter of sense gratification. So a devotee doesn't have any material shelters, but the devotee's only shelter is Guru and Krishna, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and the Lord himself. So that's another meaning of this. And another meaning of Ananya Choditam is a devotee is not inspired by anything material. He has no material motivation or impetus to act, but he's inspired by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then he goes on to say, Nrin shikshayantam nijavartma samstitam, that the Lord teaches, right? Shiksha, he gives shiksha or instruction to Nrin. Nrin means mankind, or all of human society. Nijavartma, and that way he teaches people to follow his own path. And then Prabhupada he emphasizes the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. So the Lord literally gives shiksha to the world through his instructions in Bhagavad Gita, and teaches us how to follow his own path. So this nijavartma literally means his own path, and this can be understood to be in a couple of ways. One, the path of bhakti. Right? He gives so many different paths. He gives the path of karma yoga and dhyana yoga and jnana yoga, buddhi yoga, but finally he concludes that bhakti yoga is the best path, right? It says, yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantar atmanam shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. That there are different yogas and there are different yogis that practice these yogas, but of all the yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. In other words, the bhakti yogi, he is the most intimately united with me and is the highest of all. So this is the path that Krishna wants to take. Nijavartma, his own path, the path of bhakti. And it's his own path because Krishna becomes the bhakta of his bhaktas. Krishna actually has devotion for his devotees. He's also, in that sense, he's also a bhakti yogi, that he connects with his devotees by devotion. He serves his devotees like he serves Arjuna, driving his chariot, and he serves the Pandavas in so many ways as their messenger. He serves Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, carrying Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head. And he serves Maharaj Yudhisthira, bathing the feet of all the guests at the Rajasuya Yagya. So in so many ways, he serves his devotees. And so this path of bhakti is the Lord's own path. And he gives so many instructions for it. And another way that Krishna teaches us his own, the way Prabhupada translates this Nijavartma, is that he teaches his own way of activities or his own way of life. And so this can also indicate how Krishna demonstrates his own way of life by coming to this world and manifesting his eternal pastimes. Right? He comes and he shows us his Vraj Leela. He shows us his Dwarka Leela. And Lord Ramachandra comes and shows us Ram Leela. And by observing and learning from those Leelas, we learn how to act, because Krishna, he teaches by his example. He's the original acharya, and he emphasizes this principle of acharya, right? Like teaching by example. In Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yat yat acharati shreshtas, tat tat eve taro jana, sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tad anuvartate. That whatever action a great person performs, common people follow. And in that section he says that, therefore I do my duties. Because if I didn't perform my work, then people would follow my example, and they would just be lazy and lethargic, and idle's mind is a devil's workshop. They would be engaged in all kinds of nefarious activities and go to hell. So because I'm respected and looked upon as a leader, he was the king of Dwarka after all, and even people who didn't know him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they had to respect him as a great leader, even politically, in the world. And of course, definitely by his activities and his character, he had to be regarded as a great personality. So he's saying, I don't need to do anything. I'm God. I'm independent. I actually have no duty to perform, no obligations, but still I act to set the example for others to follow. So we can learn by Krishna's example, by his instructions in Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says that this Bhagavad Gita contains all teachings, political, economic, social, religious, cultural, and philosophical. So everything that we need to know about how to live in this world and all the different facets of human society, human interaction, it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. It's complete science of how to live in this world in such a way that we can go back to Godhead at the end. And then Lord Ramachandra, in his pastimes, he set the example of how to be the ideal son. Prabhupada mentions how he followed the instructions of his father very perfectly. The ideal husband, how he took such good care of Mother Sita, and he basically risked his life in order to save her from, the clutches of Ravana. And then as an ideal king, he ruled the citizens just as if they were his children, with love and affection and care, very responsible. And then also Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya set the example for us of the ideal devotee, how to serve Krishna, especially in the age of Kali, this age that we're in, the age of darkness, where it's very difficult to do anything. Lord Chaitanya came and gave us the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, chanting the holy names of the Lord, how to chant them, Trinadapi Sunichena. He gave us the Shikshastakam, his instructions, how to chant in a humble state of mind, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of prestige, but always offering all respects to others. In that state of mind, with that attitude, we can chant the holy names constantly. And he also showed us by his own activities how to, the importance of giving this process to others, sharing the holy names with others. And beyond that, in a more sort of esoteric way, he taught us the path of spontaneous devotion. He taught us the Ragamarg of Bhakti, how to be absorbed in Krishna Smaranam, how to follow in the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan, because he had that mood of Srimati Radharani, remembering Krishna, feeling separation from the Lord, being absorbed in Vrindavan, Braj Leela, like that. So we're also meant to follow. We're meant to follow in the qualities. We're meant to aspire for and try to imbibe these transcendental qualities of the Lord that are mentioned in the first couple of lines. And then also we're meant to learn from the pastimes of the Lord and follow his example. And also teach human society as the Lord did by our own way of life, right? So how do we do that? What are some ways that we can teach human society by our own way of life? Take the microphone.
You can teach human society by being a good example yourself.
Setting a good example, like in what way, particularly?
How you conduct yourself, how you are regulated, how you practice, how you treat others based on principles of Shastra, how you act, when even there are provoking situations, how you act based on Shastra, how you conduct yourself, especially when dealing with members of the society at large. Like you see the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they would deal with the Brajvasis at who are at different levels. So there's many ways, but primarily you can preach even without speaking a word.
Exactly.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and sometimes, thank you. And sometimes that's the most powerful preaching, right? It's even like raising children. It's like they don't listen to what you say, but they do what you do. They learn by imitation. So people are generally wired like that. That we follow an example, and we learn by imitation. So when we demonstrate good qualities, when we put those good qualities like humility and tolerance and compassion and forgiveness into action, and people can observe, oh, what humility looks like, what tolerance looks like, then it's a very powerful lesson. We can teach that. It's much more powerful than just saying you need to be tolerant, you know. But when they see how we're tolerating a provoking situation, that's a very powerful learning experience. So yeah, that's one way that we can teach human society, by our own way of life. And then you also mentioned by being regulated, right? By just living a sattvic lifestyle, waking up early in the morning, having a nice spiritual program, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting japa. When people see you have this nice, very sweet, routine, it's like, wow, what a way to live. This is great, It's really like a feel-good lifestyle, You wake up in the morning, you take a bath, everything's clean, peaceful, it's just so nice. Chanting japa in the Brahma Muhurta, it's like, what better time of day to meditate? It's just a great way of life. And by that example, people can hopefully be inspired to do the same. What are some other ways we can teach people? Yes, Tammy? Just pass the mic, please.
Vegetarianism and cow protection.
Okay, good. Yeah, so vegetarianism, we can show people that actually you can live a very good, healthy life. You can be strong. Like whenever I see this, sometimes there's young, strong men that are like, I don't know, I guess they work out, but they're like, big, muscular, and they've been vegetarian. Some of our Gurukul, kids that are born in devotee families, and they're just like really strong. I'm like, this person is a good example of a vegetarian, because in countries like, especially in the Western world, people think that if you're a vegetarian, you're not going to get enough protein, and then you're going to be skinny, you're going to be weak, you're not going to be able to develop muscles, and you're going to be sickly and all that. So by having a vegetarian diet and also being healthy and that, then we can show people by our example that, yeah, you can be a vegetarian, you can live, you can be strong, you can be healthy, and a lot healthier than most people out there in the world, in fact. Yeah.
I saw a thing once on a whole group of firemen from one firehouse who were all vegetarian. And firemen are always very big and strong. And
great, yeah. And then cow protection goes with that, right? Because if you're going to be a vegetarian, then obviously you're not going to eat meat. So then, you can show people that what cows are for is not for, slaughterhouses and eating their flesh, but cows are meant to be protected and cared for. And, you milk the cow and treat the cow like mother, because mother gives you milk in your, infancy. But then mother cow provides milk throughout our whole lives. And Prabhupada said it's the miracle food. So we should protect cows in the same way that you would protect your mother, and with respect and gratitude for everything that she's given us, for the life-sustaining food that she's providing. Yeah. So when we can demonstrate a model of cow protection that works, that's economically viable and sustainable, then people can follow that example. Very good. Something else? Yes, Lalita Sundari.
Thank you for nice class, Mataji. You connected every word in the shloka, made it very relevant. I have a question. You mentioned that we might feel incomplete or dissatisfied because we haven't understood Krishna completely. But scripture says even Brahma cannot understand Krishna completely. So as mortal beings, So we will never reach the state of full satisfaction because we can never understand Krishna. So how do we reconcile this?
Yeah, I mean, the reconciliation is that complete understanding of the complete whole, or Krishna, means understanding that he's unlimited and inconceivable by our intelligence, right? That's part of the complete understanding, is completely understanding that we can never completely understand him. and that's one of his wonderful qualities, right? And that also speaks to our relationship with Krishna, that he's great and we're small, right? He's infinite and we're infinitesimal. And also understanding that Krishna is unlimited is going to give us that satisfaction, understanding that he has unlimited capacity to satisfy us, to provide for us, to maintain us. And so that's going to induce us to surrender fully to him and fully accept him as our maintainer, fully accept him as our protector, because he has unlimited capacity to maintain us, to provide for us. He has unlimited capacity to protect us. And so understanding that we can never completely understand him because he's unlimited should induce us to surrender to him and help us revive our relationship with him. And then that relationship with Krishna is what gives us the satisfaction, right? We can only be satisfied by a relationship with the unlimited Supreme Person, right? There's one famous theologian and mathematician, Blaise Pascal, and he once said famously that within the heart of every soul, there's a God-shaped vacuum. In other words, there's an empty space that is God-shaped, which means it's unlimited. And we try to fill it up with so many limited things, right? A new house, new car, money, food, relationships, all these, we try to throw all these limited things into that space, but because it's unlimited, it's like a bottomless pit. It can never be filled by limited things. So no matter how many material amenities we have in our lives, we're always going to feel unsatisfied because they're all limited. But as soon as we put God in there, as soon as we put Krishna in our hearts, then that unlimited vacuum that becomes filled, because we put an unlimited thing into an unlimited space and it's complete. Then it's like, then we get that feeling of fulfillment. So Krishna's the only way to, you were saying that question was how can we completely understand somebody that's unlimited? But accepting and understanding that he's unlimited is the key to completeness. Does that reconcile it? Okay, thank you. Feeling complete now. Anything else? Okay, so we're at time. We'll wrap it up here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Thank you all very much.